and other publications while pursuing a Ph.D. in political science at UC Berkeley. He became involved in student activism in the 1988 uprising as a 14-year-old high school student. He went into hiding in 1989, and his underground activist writer life lasted for 9 years until he fled across the Thai-Burma border in 1997. Min then worked for the Thailand-based Irrawaddy magazine and the Washington-based Radio Free Asia. He holds a master's degree in Asian Studies from UC Berkeley. So I invite Min to the stage.
Thank you very much for inviting me, giving me this opportunity, and thank you for organizing this annual event. It's very much meaningful. The topic I want to talk today is a question I've received from many of my friends and colleagues and also like readers. How do you make sense of the change in Burma, quote-unquote change in Burma? Can you put the PowerPoint on the So I've just made like a few PowerPoint slides for today so that people can get more visual. Stay close to the mic. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, good. Someone like turn off that mic. I can't see anything. Okay. Yes. My. We can't see you. Okay, you can see me. The first question is whether there is a change in Burma or not. Of course, there is a change. We can't deny or dispute some of the facts because they are significant. For example, the release of the many political prisoners, including high-profile political prisoners, are quite significant. Also, the relaxation of the local media is also very significant. And also, Aung San Suu Kyi's decision, and she was allowed in the last few months to take part in the political process and to run for the office is also significant. And then the military also approached many ethnic ceasefire groups to talk about peace. In the long process is also significant. Also, the return of the high-profile exile activists and journalists are also significant. So, in a way, the Hillary Clinton visit and all these high officials from Europe and Scandinavian countries and UN, all these things are quite significant. So we cannot dispute there is a change. But the problem is whether this change fundamentally address the country, the challenge the country has faced since independence, since 1948. Why? There are two major challenges Burma has faced since independence from Britain. The first one, and I'll say that these are two power distribution problems. The first one is more like vertical. Since, especially 1962, the people of Burma do not have right to choose their own government. Until now, because of the constitution, people of government still do not fully and freely to choose their own government. So this is a problem of self-governance. People cannot govern themselves. So this is a democratic problem. Another power distribution problem, very equally important, probably more important than the first one, which is horizontal, which is between the center and periphery. Burma comprises of multi-ethnic, different ethnic groups. These ethnic groups, since independence, they have lost their equal rights vis-a-vis Burman-dominated center. So my contention is there are two major power distribution problems. Vertical, self-governance, democratic governance problem. The second one is horizontal, which is the ethnic equality. So the current change seems to be not address both challenges. The current change are still superficial, still on the surface. In terms of institution, the problem is constitutional problem. Since independent, successive constitutions in Burma have not addressed, as I said, two major problems in Burma. One is democratic governance, the other one is ethnic minority rights. Unless we can introduce army reform, military reform, because military is the only institution that control all privileges and prerogatives, politically, economically, and in every sector. So unless we initiate military reform, I don't think we can see any substantive change in these two major power distribution problems. Then the question is, why does the government, the military, all of a sudden decide to reform? Because we see on the one hand some changes, but I just said these changes are not enough to contribute to address fundamental problems of the country. Then why do they reform? There are so many theories. I try to make it short. And two things. One is military want to perpetuate their military supremacy. They want to lead the country as in the leading role. They want to, but in the new way, with more legitimacy and avoiding Arab Spring type another uprising, because they faced 2007 Buddhist monks uprising. So that shocked many senior military officers. So they don't want to repeat that kind of stuff. So they want to come out with more like Suharto, Indonesia under Suharto, like Pak Chol-hee under South Korea. They are okay with the West. They are hanging out with America. They are hanging out with the, European country. But the military can stay control economic resource, political resource, and not only in the heartland Burma, but also in ethnic minority area. So my contention is domestically, they want to preserve military supremacy. Internationally, they want to distance themselves from China because they realize China bullied Burma a lot. Militarily, economically, politically, diplomatically. So there are two main motivations. That's why they introduced the reform. I have so many evidence and documents I can present, but I think to make it simple, this is what I found out, two major motivations. As we all know, the actual process not necessarily, follow from the motivation. Then, in terms of practice, what they are doing is basically, military, since 1962, they use three instruments. One is coercion, basically violence, to kill people, to torture people, to imprison people. The second thing is containment. They try to contain if they can confront directly. So that's what they have done with the ethnic ceasefire group. They contain them. The third one is co-optation. They rarely use, but they often use. Now I think they are using co-optation. They try to co-opt, incorporate major political elements in the military game. The parliament, the constitution, so that, on the surface, it seems like everybody can play a role. But actually, they can play a role within the constitution. So the constitution clearly, definitively favor the military privileges. And I don't want to go in detail. You can read the Burma-related news. You can see so many rivalry, institutional rivalry between the parliament and the president, executive, and so much tension these days coming out. And you can see so many problems with the lack of capacity. After more than, since 1962, several decades of the military rule, our bureaucracy, our civil servants, education system, health, everything has been destroyed. So once you want to start any reform, even military-dominated reform, military officers and the current government, they realize they don't have any capacity. So that's a capacity problem. And so, but at the same time, the opposition movement and the media and the civil